It's time for your daily LSU baseball update with Musso at the box. Now, Matt Musso.
And welcome in to another edition of Musso at the box. LSU, they run the record of 14-2, taking 2 of 3 from Xavier over the weekend, winning the Friday night game 4-0 behind 6 no-hit innings from Luke Holman, following that up with an 8-2 victory Saturday over Xavier behind a 5 shutout inning performance from Gage Jump. And then they fall in the finale. Great pitching from Thatcher Hurd, Nate Ackenhausen, and Gavin Guidry, but the bats go silent, and LSU falls 2-1 in that one. So 14-2, they will head into their final 2 pre-conference games before they open up the SEC slate at Mississippi State against North Dakota State. Those are the 2 final pre-conference games, Tuesday and Wednesday. Before we get to that, later in the week, we have to recap the weekend as a whole. So we will go through each individual game, give you some more in-depth thoughts than we were able to give just in our immediate reaction. And, of course, we will talk plenty about the offensive struggles, not just on the game Sunday, I should say, but also Friday night wasn't great either. And you feel Saturday was very good, but I think you still feel coming out, and I felt great about them Saturday, man, after that game offensively. But you probably still come out of the weekend with more questions than answers on the offensive side for LSU. So we are going to dive into all of it. Smash the like button. Get subscribed up to the podcast on the YouTube channel. Go ahead and subscribe there, Musso at the Box, and on your favorite podcast app. Much appreciated. Again, smash the like button here if you're watching this video. And, of course, get subscribed up, like, share, all of that. Greatly appreciated. You can follow me across social media as well, on Twitter at Musso Matthew, on Facebook, Matt Musso. I am everywhere there, and it is greatly appreciated. Let's not beat around the bush. Let's go ahead and dive right in. We'll start with Friday night. So LSU gets that victory 4-0. Luke Holman toes the rubber on Friday night once again for LSU, and y'all, he was dominant. It was fantastic. And what was crazy about it was I really didn't think that he had his best stuff early in that ball game. There was a little bit of a trend kind of for the LSU starting pitching, which was awesome all weekend long. But there was a little bit of a trend. I mean, Holman had to battle. And credit Xavier on a little bit of that too, man. That was a pesky lineup that LSU faced this week. They really worked counts, really drove up the pitch counts, fouled off a lot of balls to get deep into those counts. They were up to the task. And, it happened against Holman. They ran the pitch count up early, but he was really able to settle in and get you 6 innings. Again, didn't give up a hit. If the pitch count's a little bit more in check, 97 through 6, he was, potentially able to go deeper there, but got you the 10 strikeouts and just was awesome, and you got good relief pitching behind him. Looking at that game, you start a little bit there in the first inning, and he goes 3 up, 3 down. LSU, the bats come out hot against Luke Hoskins from Xavier with 1 out. Milam singles to center. White singles up the middle, so you have back-to-back singles there with 1 out. Brady Neal. So if you look at Friday night, I mean, you got a stiff north wind kind of blowing in from left, a little bit of a crosswind, and Brady Neal steps up, gets himself into a hitter's count there in his first AB, and just drives a ball to the opposite field any night other than Friday. On a normal night at the box, it clears the wall easily, but doesn't. Hits off the top of the wall, and it ends up being a double that scores Milam, and then Travinsky comes right behind him with a sac fly, and you're up 2-0, and you're feeling really good. I mean, the way Luke Holman's pitching right now, 2 runs feels like an insurmountable lead. Quite honestly, the way that number 38 is going, and he would come back and get a fairly easy inning. He had a hit by pitch in there, but nobody went past first base, and then LSU gets right back up there, and the offense keeps on humming against Hoskins, right? You have a 1-out walk from Bingham on 4 pitches. Braswell triples to center field to bring Bingham around after a strikeout by Kling. Milam doubles to left center, and you're up 4-0 after 2 innings. And you're thinking, all right, 4 runs, Holman on the bump, you cruise to this victory. And on the mound, you did. Offensively, well, you didn't. In the third, after Holman pitches around a little bit of trouble for you, LSU would end up with two guys on, first and second, and nobody out. You'd go strikeout, pop up. The single by Ashton Larson, which made it first and third, ended up being LSU's last hit of the ball game. And that's kind of wherein lies the problem. You really shook Luke Hoskins up early, and then you allowed him to settle in. And look, we talked a lot about Hoskins, where the numbers that he had coming into the weekend were not really indicative of the type of pitcher he was. If you look back at him being kind of the heart and soul of Xavier staff last season, he was very good. An ERA just above 4, a 7-2 record, really was kind of their anchor, so you knew he had it in him. Preseason, all Big East, all those type of things. You knew he had it in him, and LSU, for whatever reason, whether it be, not as competitive at bats as they should have been taken, throughout the game or as they took early in the game, allowed him to settle in, and he really put the handcuffs on you for the rest of the night. Hoskins ends up going 7 innings in that ball game, and then, you allow a perfect outing out of the bullpen. So after the third, LSU doesn't score again. But it was okay. That it in the grand scheme of things, it's okay because Luke Holman, you give him 4 runs, that feels like 8. The way he's throwing the ball right now, that's so all right. You can look past that a little bit. What I will say, look, you go to the 7th inning. We'll fast forward that LSU. They weren't getting hits. They did have some other opportunities just via walks. Xavier struggles with walks, obviously, and LSU had opportunities throughout the rest of that game. They couldn't get the big hit, and that honestly was a theme, Friday and definitely Sunday. But let's fast forward to the 7th inning here, and that's when Holman's day ends, is after 6, and Christian Little comes in. It's a big spot for Little. It's a 4-run game. You have a no-hitter going, actually, if you're the Tigers at that point. He gets the first guy to ground out, that's Cushing. Then Dupre doubles to right. You give up a single, but big credit to Christian Little. Gets the double play and gets out of that inning. Got the double play in a 2-0 count, mind you. Hitters count at the plate and gets the ground ball that he needs for the double play there. It was disappointing. LSU couldn't add anything in the 7th, obviously, but you go to the 8th, and this is where it was really interesting and really great to see Christian Little. He comes back out, starts the inning dominant. Strikeout, both of them looking. Just tells you the stuff's really working there. Would give up a single, then a walk, but he'd work around that. Isaac Waxman's at the plate. Again, big spot. They go to Herring there. So I thought Little, he couldn't get you out of that inning, but Jay, as he's been able to do this year, just with the depth of the staff, you don't have to have a long leash with some of the guys out of the bullpen. So Little goes strikeout, both looking, single walk. You have Waxman coming up, who's been the hottest hitter probably for Xavier. They go to Griffin Herring. I loved that spot, too, because that showed such confidence in Griffin Herring, where Griff didn't pitch bad in Houston. He just had a little bit of bad luck, and he ended up giving up 3 earned runs. So show the kid the confidence that you have in him, putting back in this spot where one swing of the bat can make it a 1-run ball game and your offense is sputtering. Well, credit Herring, 3 pitches, strikes out Waxman looking, and gets LSU into the dugout. And then, Herring, he finishes it off in the 9th inning, and LSU gets their 4-0 win. That's a game that you can see LSU play an awful lot on Friday night this year, where, and I don't want to totally get into that right now because that's something I want to talk about a little bit later, is how I think this team's going to do against some top aces on Friday nights in the SEC. And I don't necessarily mean later in this show. I mean later, kind of down the week. We can touch on it a little bit. But runs are going to be at a premium. So to see LSU's arms come out and do what they did in that type of spot, in that tight spot, facing some of the best hitters on that Xavier team in tight spots and have the success that they have is encouraging. What is not encouraging is the drop-off in at-bats for LSU after the third inning. That's a problem, and that problem was magnified on Sunday, but we will get to that and really give, overarching thoughts. The one thing I will say is of your 7 hits on Friday night, they were scattered throughout the lineup pretty well, and that is encouraging. The problem is the drop-off. I mean, Steven Milam had 2 hits, but, White got a hit, Neal got a hit, Travinski got a hit, Larson got a hit, Braswell got a hit. Like, throughout top to bottom, they're scattered. The drop-off, again, that's the problem. So, but you get the win. Luke Holman did what he did and is supposed to do on Friday night, and that's great. So you fast forward to Saturday, and you go into this obviously looking for Gage Jump to do 2 things. Number 1, pitch well, but number 2, extend. And he did that. That's going to be the conversation with him really all throughout this early portion of the season. Can he keep taking the next step in the pitch count and his progression and his rehab coming back from the injury? And he did that. Gage Jump was awesome. It didn't start out great for Gage Jump. You were looking at a 19-pitch inning in the first, but he strikes out the side. Had to, get around a hit batter and a single, but strikes out the side. So now it's like, okay, can you get the pitch count in check and get deep into the game? You had to wait a little bit for that. In the second inning, it was another long inning, longer than the first. What was crazy about that is you give up the single to start the inning, and he goes strikeout, strikeout, strikeout. But at that point, he's at 46 pitches through 2 innings. And you're thinking, all right, he's on a pitch count. Ultimately, seeing him extend is what's most important and get the pitch count up. But you do want to see him continue to get deep. And credit to Gage Jump, after having 46 pitches through 2 innings, he ends up getting you through 5 at 87. So that tells you, right there, y'all, he threw just about the same amount of pitches the next 3 innings that he did in the first. His last inning, that 5th, was a 13-pitch inning. He kept getting stronger after that struggle through the first 2. So that was very, very encouraging. In a similar fashion to game number 1, game number 2 for LSU, started out quickly at the plate. Nolan Hughes is on the bump for Xavier, and we talked plenty about him, where it's, a lot of good stuff. Up to 95 from the left side, a nice little curveball, but the walks and control were a problem. He came in with more walks than innings pitched, double the amount of walks than innings pitched. And you knew going up against a lineup like LSU, where maybe the consistency in hits hasn't been there. LSU's done really well at working counts this year, and that probably wasn't going to, fare well for a guy like Nolan Hughes, and it didn't. LSU got the pitch count up early, and they got him out of the game at 63 pitches in just an inning and 2/3. But you look at him there in the first, Kling leads it off, being hit by a pitch. Milam reaches on an error, so you have runners at the corners. Big spot, nobody out. Travinski strikes out swinging, and that's not great. Milam would steal second. White would strike out swinging. That's not great. But then Jared Jones puts together a great at-bat for you. You're looking at 6 pitches there from Jones to draw a walk. And Ethan Fry, who was getting the start, comes up with a massive double on a full count, just strokes it right over the left fielder's head off the wall, and it clears the bases. So, again, you can look at that inning and see some of the good, some of the bad from LSU, right? You have Travinski at the plate with runners at the corners and nobody out, and he strikes out. That's not good. Same thing with White. Tommy White up, second and third, 1 out. First base is open, and they choose to pitch to him, and he strikes out. That's not great. But Jared Jones puts together the great at-bat, and then Ethan Fry, the 2-out production that we've talked so much about with this team, comes to fruition again, and you're up 3-0. After Jump puts up the 0 in the top of the second, as we already talked about, LSU's able to put together another mini rally. A leadoff walk to Braswell, a single from Milazzo, a walk to Kling. You have the bases loaded. You get a sac fly from Milam. You're up 4-0. What was disappointing in this inning is LSU ultimately did leave the bases loaded. And you would have loved to have seen them really be able to tack on more, but ultimately they didn't. You go to the you go to the third, you get 2 men on again. You can't push anything across, but this is when Gage jump was really kind of starting to settle in, and you're already up 4-0, so you feel pretty good. Kind of mirror image, right, from Friday night, 4-0 through 2. You feel great with the pitcher that you have on the mound. All of those types of things. In the fourth inning, Hayden Travinski homers to right field, just a bullet to the opposite field, got 47 feet off the ground. That was how you were going to have to do it on Friday night. That was all for them there. The fifth inning was huge, right? So Gage jump, gets the strikeout swinging to start the inning, but that pitch count's getting up there, and you know he doesn't have much left. Doesn't have much left in the tank. He walks Stevenson. You have a mound visit from Jay. That could have been it, but they left him in to try to get out of it, and gets ahead 0-2, and then gets Anderson to ground into the double play, and he gets himself through 5 innings. I thought that was massive, obviously, for Jump. The pitch count, like I said, was the most important thing, but to get him through 5 innings again was awesome. What they're going to have to work on with him slowly is the efficiency. I mean, the guy hasn't pitched. He had a whole year off rehabbing that injury. The efficiency is going to leave you a little bit there, but I thought that was massive for him to get you through 5 innings, 2 weeks in a row. Again, shutout ball. That was huge. And then LSU blows the game open. Blows the game open in the 5th inning. With 1 out, Braswell singles to right. Milazzo follows up with a single to center. You have Pearson fly out, but then you have 2 outs again. Milam, a great piece of hitting. 0-2, inside out's a ball through the left side for an opposite field single. Apologies. For an opposite field single, that scores 2. So at that point, that puts LSU up 7-0. And then Hayden Travinski comes up. That scored 1. So that put LSU up 6-0. Then Hayden Travinski comes up, gets himself into a hitter's count at 2-0, and hits a bullet down the left field line. 1 hops the wall for a double. That scored the last 2. And at that point, LSU is up 8-0, and you feel really, really good. Sam Dutton would come in along with Cam Johnson. Cam Johnson came in, faced 1 hitter. Lefty-lefty matchup, got him. Dutton came in. I thought Dutton pitched well. He gave up 3 hits in that 6th. He gave up 4 hits in that 6th. 1 of them was hit hard. The rest of them were kind of just poked and found the ground. So Dutton pitched well, but ultimately the 2 runs are charged to him. But you had an 8-run lead to play with. I thought he, really represented himself well in the 7th to come back, get ground out. And then they went to Bronzini to finish that inning. And then Will Helmers took you the rest of the way, and LSU got the 8-2 to win there. What I liked about that game offensively was this. LSU faced conditions all weekend, but really on Saturday, the conditions they faced gave them problems earlier in the year. That stiff north wind coming across, kind of blowing in from the north with the cold weather, and LSU, they were awesome. I mean, a lot of short, compact swings, line drives, ground balls, and you got 8 runs on 11 hits. They showed you that they could do it, and they were awesome, and it was consistent. It was throughout the lineup and throughout the game. I mean, in the first 5 innings, you had 8 runs. You end up with 8 runs on 11 hits. You left 12 on base. You had a lot of opportunities and cashed in on a lot of those opportunities. And you did it in conditions that had really given you problems. And I thought that was very encouraging, especially after coming off the previous night where you faced those same type of conditions and struggled once again. The problem is you faced them again on Sunday, and the results just were not the same. So let's get there. Let's go to Sunday. And obviously one of the big stories going into this game is Thatcher Hurd. How is he going to do in that 3rd spot? And y'all, it wasn't clean, but it was very, very effective. Thatcher Hurd did his job once again as a Sunday starter in this league. That's it. Full stop, period. That's it. That's the end of that conversation right now. He did his job. Did he pitch himself into trouble? Absolutely. And did he pitch him out of that trouble? You damn right. We can go through all the situations you want to in that game from Hurd, and he pitched himself out of it. And I'm telling you right now, that is massive to have on Sunday, because you're going to face a lot of teams, even in the SEC, who don't have a guy who can do that. And I'm not going to sit here and tell you that he's going to be able to pitch himself out of trouble every weekend in the SEC. That's not what I'm saying. And I'm not going to sit here and tell you that there's not going to come a time during this SEC schedule where maybe you do see a change there. I'm not ruling it out. What I am telling you is it's not going to be this weekend coming up against Mississippi State. That's all I'm saying. So I thought Thatcher Hurd pitched very well. He punched out 9. He got you through 5. So all 3 of your starters got you through at least 5. Talk about a luxury that a lot of other teams aren't going to have. You have that right now. That's great. The walk number was low. He didn't give up an earned run this time. All good things, really, from Thatcher Hurd. He kept you in the ball game, left with it tied. All good things. So I thought Hurd was very good. He was especially great in the first inning, 13 pitches, 3 up, 3 down. The first inning has just not been a problem for the young. Like we mentioned that last time, the inevitable 2, not for Thatcher Hurd. He does, very fine there. What was disappointing was the missed opportunities early in the game for LSU. And that was the contrast from the first 2 games, right? We just went through it. The first 2 games of the series, you're up 4-0 after 2 innings both days. LSU had the opportunity to do that again on Sunday, and they couldn't come through. And the at-bats just weren't great. They were very uncomfortable, it looked like, against Nick Boyle. And I don't want to take anything really away from him, because he statistically had the best numbers of any Xavier starter coming in, and the stuff's good. But LSU just did not take good at bats. They did not take good at bats early in this ball game, really throughout, but specifically early. Like, you look at the first inning, Milam singles on the infield, and you have a runner at first, nobody out. And you go punch out. Travinsky looking, Neal swinging. And White's hit by a pitch. You get a dirt ball, Milam aggressive play. He's thrown out at third after he overslid the base. But the bigger issue there is the leadoff single, punch out. And that was a theme. That was a big theme. Like, go to the second inning. Thatcher Hurd gets himself into a lot of trouble. First and second, nobody out. Ends up being first and third, nobody out. You have a stolen base, so second and third, he goes strikeout, and gets out of that. Wiggles off the hook. Okay, you got the momentum. Pearson, who was left at the plate when Milam got thrown out trying to take third, draws the leadoff walk. Second consecutive inning, leadoff man on, ground out, pop out, ground out. The ground out and the pop out, both on first pitch. This is a guy in Nick Boyle who came into the ball game with a walk per inning average, and you handed him 2 outs on 2 pitches after a leadoff walk. That's not okay. That's not what Jay Johnson wants. I guarantee you that is not what Jay Johnson wants in that spot. So you allow them to hang another 0. You go to the third. Really nice inning for Hurd. Strikes out the side with a single smash, sandwiched in between. Once again, LSU gets the leadoff man on. Braswell pokes an opposite field single to right. And now this time, you have the top of the order coming up. So you have a runner at first, 1, 2, and 3 in your order coming up. Milam flies out, but then Travinsky punches again. Brady Neal singles to center field after. So you have runners at first and second. Tommy White at the plate. They again pitch to him, and he strikes out swinging. So that's in the first inning. You had 2 on, and you ended up with 2 punch outs. In the in the third inning, you have the leadoff guy on. You go fly out, strikeout. Then you have 2 on, and you go another strikeout. Just not great at bats. And the ball that Tommy struck out on, he was completely fooled. So that's where you look at pitch recognition there too. I mean, he waves at a ball in the left-handed batter's box. Not what you want. A very uncharacteristic AB from a guy like Tommy White. So you go in the fourth. And again, Hurd kind of pitches himself into trouble. Waxman doubles to lead off that inning, but he goes fly out, hit by pitch, and then 2 more flyouts. And he wiggles off the hook again. LSU gets a 1-out triple from Jared Jones. He absolutely destroys this baseball to dead center field into the teeth of the wind, hits it 405 feet, gets the triple out of it. So you have a runner at third base with 1 out. How many different ways can that guy score? We talk about it all the time. How many different ways can that guy score? Ashton Larson comes up. He's made the most of his opportunities all the way up to this point in the season, and this is the biggest chance that he has, and he punches out. And that, he's a freshman. I get it, all that, but that's just, it continued the theme for the first few innings of this ball game where LSU had guys in scoring position where just putting the ball in play is a massive win, and they punch out. They weren't seeing the ball. They were not comfortable at the plate. Mac Bingham follows, hits a ball to second base, and Xavier gives you a gift. The second baseman can't field it cleanly. Bingham beats it out, and Jones scores. Xavier's a bad fielding team. That's who we talked about that in the preview. They were fielding like 956. They aren't good in the field. They gave you a gift. That's great. That's how you scratch the run across. What was a little disappointing was in the top half of the 5th inning, Thatcher Hurd walks the leadoff guy. And that's what you can't do, right? That's where you look at Hurd's outing and you go, man, look, you've pitched yourself in and out of trouble all day, and that's fine. That's going to be good for you on a Sunday. But when your team gives you the lead, when they're scratching and clawing and not having the best at-bats, you cannot walk the leadoff guy in the next inning. LSU does, and then you have a sack bunt that's a throwing error. So you're again, 2 runners on, nobody out. Credit Hurd. He gets the strikeout swinging, gets a ground out to the right side, scores the runner from third base, and then he gets another strikeout. So, again, while you don't want the leadoff walk there in that spot, you credit Thatcher Hurd for gritting his teeth, battling one more time, and not allowing the go-ahead run to come home. He kept it manageable at 1-1. When you look at the bottom half, LSU again gets runners on first and second, this time with 2 outs, and again, you have a strikeout to end the inning. To the 6th, same thing kind of qualifies here for Ackenhausen as it did for Hurd in the 5th. And I'm not trying to come down on the pitching, y'all. The pitching was great. They gave up 2 runs. That's more than good enough to win the game. But you can't walk the leadoff guy out of the bullpen. You just can't do it. You have to. It's a cardinal sin. You have to come in and throw strikes there. And then you have the throwing error on a pick over to first base, puts another runner in scoring position, and credit Xavier. They put together good ABs and were able to get that run home. And ultimately, that was the difference in the ball game. You go to the bottom half of the 6th, LSU has a chance to answer. You get a fielding error, and then Kling's hit by a pitch. So 2 gifts from Xavier, and you go to bunt. And I hated that call. Like I can understand it in the moment where it's like, all right, you got a struggling offense right now. It's late in the game. You're down 1. You're doing everything you can to scratch across the run. Understood. But in the same vein, you're down 1. You got a struggling offense. You're going to give up an out. And the out that you ended up giving up happened to be at third base. So the lead runner's pegged. And it takes the momentum away from LSU. You have another strikeout with runners in scoring position. And then a fly out to end the inning from Milam. And LSU never really sniffed another rally in the ball game. They went pretty quietly the rest of the way home. And it was just a very disappointing offensive performance. I mean, LSU punched out 12 times in the ball game. And again, as we went through, most of them felt like pretty big spots with runners in scoring position. And that, to me, was the more disappointing thing. Because LSU, while there have been first pitch outs plenty this year, they really have done well working counts. They have. And they did not do that at all. Like, from my perspective, will look at Sunday's game against Xavier and tell you that is the worst offensive performance they've had all year. So there's only one place to go, and that's up. But the thing is, when I look at LSU's offense, and this is the big picture takeaway for me on that, when I look at LSU's offense, I see a way more than capable unit. Because you've seen it enough. Like, the Saturday game was great. The Friday night game against Texas, against a true ace in LeBaron Johnson, was great. They bludgeoned some teams on Sunday that were out of pitching, and that's great, but that doesn't really factor into what we're talking about. But you've seen them be good. You've also seen them have games like Sunday. You can look at that Central Arkansas game, and the conditions played a massive, massive role in that. So I would probably compare this one more favorably or unfavorably, really, to that first Stony Brook game, where you had opportunities and you just couldn't get the runs across. They don't lack for talent in the lineup. They lack for a little bit of experience, and they lack for a whole lot of consistency. But the consistency should come with more experience. Y'all, this is the deepest outfield I've ever seen at LSU that I can remember. I've been going to games since I was born. I don't have as vast of a, memory of it as some of you listening, but I'm hampered by, I can only do what I can do. But you got to pick three guys and go. I think that will help this lineup have consistency. It's something we talked about leading into this weekend, where I wanted to see somebody start to separate themselves there, so hopefully you could get more consistent at bats for someone, and they could get into a groove. No one really separated themselves. Ethan Fry started to, but then got hurt, unfortunately. And Jay said he'll probably miss at least a week. So you got to pick somebody and see if you can't develop some consistency in the lineup. And then you need some guys who are in there just about every day to kind of pick it up. And two guys I will point to are the guys in the middle in White and Travinsky, because they are your veteran hitters. And I know you could look at Travinsky and say he didn't really have that much experience. He's been hurt a lot. I get it. He's been in there in some really big spots, especially last year, and came through in some really big spots. He wears that number 8. He is a leader on this team, and that guy has to consistently turn in good at bat after good at bat after good at bat. Same thing with Tommy White. You have to get Tommy White going. And Tommy's not having a bad year by any stretch of the imagination, so don't misunderstand me. Y'all, Tommy White's hitting .317 and has drove in 12 runs. And we knew this coming in, that it'd be a bit more of a down year for Tommy, because he's no longer hitting behind Dylan Cruz and Trey Morgan and Gavin Dugas and Cade Beloso and all those guys, and we knew that. But you have enough pieces in this lineup to figure it out around him, and you have to do it. Because right now, I do believe he's being neutralized a little bit. I do. It's funny to say that because they're still pitching to him. I understand. But just look at some of the spots he's coming up in. Sometimes there's nobody on, right? Some of those singles he's hitting is 2-out singles, there's nobody on. Or a leadoff single, there's nobody on. You got to craft the pieces around him a little better. And I will be perfectly clear. Let there be no misunderstanding me when I'm about to say what I'm about to say. I 100% trust Jay Johnson to get that figured out and make that happen. That's the thing. We can go through all these topics we're talking about with this offense right now and where they're struggling and the at-bats that weren't up to par this weekend and everything. And I will sit here and tell you, while I would love to be fired up about them going into SEC play offensively, I'm not. But I have full confidence in this coaching staff, because literally every single team this man has ever coached has hit the baseball, and this one will too. It's just taking a little bit more time. They do not lack for the talent. It was never going to be last year, ever. We know that. It doesn't have to be. What this team can be is very versatile. I think there is enough power in this team to be a 100 home run team. I really believe that. They just have to get to that point. And when they do, paired with this pitching staff, they're going to be very good. They're going to be a big problem for a lot of teams. I trust Jay to get that done. But the first thing I really want to see them do is establish some consistency. And I think that starts with certain guys in the lineup, more and more. I love the depth that they have. I really do. But you got to send guys out there and let them try to get in a groove. And I've told y'all, the lineup I think you see when they start SEC play, and we'll see what happens in these next two games against North Dakota State, but the lineup that I think you see in the SEC is reminiscent from the one that you saw against Rice in the midweek, where you have Kling in there, and Pearson in there, and Bingham, and Milam, and Braswell, and White, and Jones, and Brady Neal, and Travinsky at DH. I think that's the lineup you roll with to start and see if those guys can't get in a groove. Because I think that's your best combination of experience and talent. We will see what they do. We will have plenty of time to talk about this before they get to Starkville, but that's where I'm at right now. They have to develop consistency, and I have full confidence that they will under this coaching staff, because every team in the past under this coaching staff, whether it be at Arizona, whether it be at LSU, whether it be at Nevada, wherever, has done that. We just have to wait and watch this one do it. In the meantime, you have a great pitching staff that's going to help carry the way. Like, y'all, I don't think there's going to be too many 2-1 losses for LSU this year. There could be a few. Like, you could point on the schedule and find, okay, that could be one, but I don't think there's going to be many. LSU gives up 2 runs. They're going to win that game more often than not. Your starting pitching was incredible. They struck out 29. They each got through 5 innings, at least. None of them gave up an earned run. They were awesome. You add in what Cade Anderson did in the midweek in the start, you've got 4 bona fide guys in your rotation, to where if something does go wrong with one of them on the weekend, you slide that guy in. I know everybody wants it now, but try to understand that is an elite position to be in, where you feel like you have an interchangeable guy to where you plug and play and go from there. Don't rush it. That's all I'm saying there. And your bullpen's been fantastic. I mean, y'all, LSU, and we're going to wrap this up here shortly. LSU has an ERA as a team just above 3. They've already punched out over 200 batters, and the opponent's hitting just above the Mendoza line against this team. They have dealt on the mound, and with plenty of depth as well. So you feel great there going in. They got 2 more games to get a final tune-up and figure this out. You know we're going to have you covered wall to wall here on Musso at the Box. I'm fired up to get into this next week. I'm fired up to get to this weekend as well and watch them in SEC play, because Mississippi State, and we'll talk about this throughout the week, they're starting to play a little bit better baseball over there. They're not, I wouldn't classify them good team right now, but they're starting to play a little bit better, and it's going to be one heck of a test. You know you're going to get the best shot. You know you're going to have a packed house over there in Duty Noble. That's going to wrap us up here on Musso at the Box. Smash that like button. Get subscribed to the YouTube channel. Get subscribed up on your favorite podcast app. Share. All of that greatly appreciated, and follow me on social media. And be here next time. We'll have more for you on Musso at the Box.